If you grew up in the 1990s, you remember a time before everything went digital. Listening to music on CD players, hoping the disc wouldn't skip. Sitting on the internet and praying no one picked up the phone in the middle of a download. And of course, Friday night trips to the video store weren't just routine, they were part of how we lived. This is growing up in the 1990s. We were the last to really live. In the early 90s, CD players started replacing cassette Walkmans, and it felt like a big upgrade. No more rewinding tapes or flipping sides. Just pop in a disc and skip straight to your favorite track. The sound was clearer, more polished, especially compared to worn-out cassettes, but they weren't perfect.
Ideal proving ground for the Sony Discman with ESP. We developed ESP technology.
Most of us remember walking around trying not to jostle the thing, because even with anti-skip tech, a small bump could make the music jump ahead mid-song. People carried them flat in one hand like a tray, just to keep things steady. Still, it was worth it. CDs felt like the future, even if you had to babysit the player. There was something about making mixtapes that was just magic. The task of hitting record at the right moment, trying to avoid the DJ talking over the song, and hoping you didn't end up with an awkward fade-out at the end. It was an art form. We made them for ourselves, for our crushes, or just to share with friends. The mix of songs on a single tape told a story. And then, as CDs took over, we switched to burning our mixes onto discs. Too bad kids today will never really know the thrill of exchanging a mixtape with a friend, or the rush of hearing that perfect song when you hit play. And don't say you never made a mixtape back in the day. Friday nights used to mean grabbing a worn-out VHS tape, sliding it into the VCR, and hitting play. Whether it was a movie you owned or one you rented from the corner video store, there was something special about watching it on your own TV. The picture was grainy, the tracking sometimes needed adjusting, but that was part of the charm. And remember those insert sheets that came with new blank tapes? We had dozens of them, always nearby, just in case. The soft whir as the tape loaded, that satisfying click, it meant you were in for a good time, right there in your living room.
Okay, we can play it on my brother's computer.
Okay, no problem. All we gotta do is...
Before flash drives or cloud storage, we had floppy disks. And I mean floppy. If you're old enough, you might remember the big 8-inch ones, or those 5¼ inch disks that actually bent when you held them. But most of us used the 3.5-inch kind, the hard plastic ones with that little metal slider. I used to pull it back with my finger just to hear it snap shut. And when your computer started reading it, that clicking and whirring sound meant your files were, hopefully, loading. It wasn't high capacity, but back then, it felt like the future. There was a time when Friday nights meant heading to the video rental store, whether it was Blockbuster, Hollywood Video, or Suncoast. You'd grab your membership card, ready to pick out your weekend movie haul. New releases were a big deal, and you'd always hope the latest blockbuster was still available, because they were in high demand, and if you weren't fast enough, you'd end up with something else. The shelves were lined with VHS tapes, and the excitement of picking out the perfect one, then racing home to watch it, was its own kind of magic. No streaming, no instant access, just the thrill of picking a movie off the shelf. Remember that unforgettable sound when you connected to the internet? That screeching, buzzing noise that seemed to go on forever? You knew you were about to dive into something new, but it always felt like an adventure, or a test of patience. If someone in the house picked up the phone while you were online, it was like losing all progress, especially if you were downloading a file, and everything would reset from the beginning. It wasn't uncommon to hear your mom yelling, "Don't pick up the phone, I'm waiting for an important call." And don't forget that heart-pounding moment when the screen finally loaded and that iconic
"You've got mail"
popped up. A simple message, but it felt like you had won the internet lottery back then. POGs were one of those things that defined the 90s.
But look, I got some cool POGs. Elf POGs. Remember Elf?
They were everywhere, at school, in kids' pockets, and on the playground. The game itself was simple, but the fun was endless. You'd gather with friends, each with their own stack of POGs, ready to battle it out. The goal? Knock the other person's POGs out of the stack using your own. But it wasn't just about the game. It was about the excitement of collecting them, trading them with friends, and showing off your best ones. Every POG was a little piece of nostalgia, and that feeling of victory when you won a trade or knocked out a rare one was unbeatable. Saturday mornings in the 90s were a magical time. The TV was our window to a world of adventure, and it all started with a bowl of cereal in hand. New episodes of Winnie the Pooh, Scooby-Doo, and Beetlejuice would kick off the weekend, each show a new adventure to dive into. The excitement of discovering what was coming next kept us glued to the screen, while the theme songs became the soundtrack of our childhood. Saturdays weren't just about cartoons, they were about the simple joy of the weekend and all the possibilities it brought. And when the cartoons ended, well, it was time to go outside and start our own adventures. Back in the early 90s, smoking was everywhere. It's hard to believe, but you could even light up inside a McDonald's. Remember those little foil ashtrays they had on the tables? It wasn't just fast food joints. People smoked in restaurants, on planes, and even in movie theaters. The air was thick with it, and nobody thought twice. Whether it was after a meal or with a drink at the bar, smoking was just part of the experience. It's hard to imagine now, but thankfully, bans on smoking in these places came soon after, making the air a little cleaner for everyone. Disposable cameras were everywhere back in the day. You'd take them to birthdays, weddings, parties, really, any event worth remembering. No one had phones in their pockets, just those little plastic cameras. You'd snap a few photos and hope for the best, then wait days to get them developed. The fun was in the surprise. Half the shots were blurry, someone's eyes were closed, but it didn't matter. Even now you can still find them, bringing back that old school charm. Before Google and smartphones, there was Encarta, the encyclopedia on a CD-ROM that felt like the future. You'd pop it into your computer and spend hours exploring, clicking from one topic to the next out of pure curiosity. It wasn't just for school projects. Sometimes you'd dive into it just for the fun of learning. There were sound clips, timelines, even short videos, and of course, Mind Maze, the trivia game that made you feel like a genius. Back then, it felt like having the whole world right there on your screen. There was a time when every road trip started with unfolding a big paper map across the kitchen table. You'd trace your route with a finger, maybe even highlight it with a marker. Most of us kept one stuffed in the glove box, just in case. They'd get worn at the creases and sometimes torn, but they never ran out of battery or lost signal. Even today, if you're out in the middle of nowhere with no internet, that old folded-up map might just save the day. It wasn't the most convenient, but it did the job, and there was something rewarding about figuring it out as you went. In the days before the internet made walkthroughs and cheat codes easy to find, gaming magazines were our go-to guides. Magazines like Electronic Gaming Monthly, GamePro, and Tips and Tricks were practically like treasure maps, leading us to the best tips, cheats, and reviews. Each issue was a mini event. We'd flip through the pages, finding new tricks to try or sneak peeks at upcoming games. It was a world of gaming discovery before the days of online forums or YouTube tutorials. You had to wait, savor it, and sometimes even fight for the best tips. Paying by check might seem old-fashioned now, but back in the day, it was the standard way to handle most transactions. Whether you were paying your rent, your electric bill, or picking up a new appliance, writing a check was just part of life. And let's not forget those carbon copy checkbooks, where you'd always have a record of your payment for later. It may have taken longer to clear than swiping a card, but it felt more personal somehow, like you were really in control of your money. Plus, writing checks meant you had to plan ahead, not just buy whatever on a whim. Flying in the 90s became more accessible to the average person. With the rise of budget airlines and more affordable fares, flying wasn't just for the wealthy anymore. It felt like a new era of travel, where people from all walks of life could hop on a plane and explore new places. There were still no long security lines or tight regulations, and it felt more relaxed. Traveling in the 90s had a different kind of charm. It wasn't always the most comfortable, but it felt special. PB Crisps were a beloved snack from the 90s, shaped like peanuts and packed with delicious fillings like peanut butter, chocolate, or even peanut butter and jelly. Their crunchy outer shell and smooth, creamy filling created the perfect snack experience. Whether you grabbed them for a quick snack after school or packed them in your lunch, they were a staple for many. Sadly, PB Crisps are no longer around, but for those who remember, they still bring back those tasty memories of the 90s. What comes to mind when you think of the 90s? I'd love to hear your memories in the comments. And if you enjoyed this little trip back in time, don't forget to subscribe for more nostalgic content coming your way.